and that is Kamila Kuc. And Kamila is a master's student in the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program, which is an online program as part of the College of Education. Her faculty mentor for the CEJS Fellowship is Alex Johnston, assistant professor in film production at the College of Arts and Sciences. Kamila is a London and Seattle-based filmmaker. Her films have screened at festivals and galleries worldwide. Her feature film, which is called What We Shared, and came out in 2021. It premiered at the London Film Festival and is now part of the United Nations Development Programme EU for Peace Impact Program, which generates dialogue for peace creation in former Soviet Union republics. She holds a PhD and MA in film history from the University of London, and her CEJS fellowship project is called Hyper-Objects and Climate Hostages, Transforming Narratives About Climate Change Through Counseling and Film. Kamila, can't wait to hear you share, and you're also gonna show one of your videos, right? Awesome. Once we get to that, it should be set up, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, everybody, for being here. That's quite a mouthful. The title has changed many times. I've landed eventually on reimagining climate futures, creative practices for social change. And for this project, I teamed up, obviously, with the Seattle University and the fellowship, which has been really helpful as I'm actually in the process of applying for more funding to create a feature film out of the films that we've been making. And I've also teamed up with the Cadence Video Poetry Festival, which is hosted every year at the Northwest Film Forum, and also Common Objects, which is a new space for artists in Seattle, some of you might know. So the main goal for this wing of the project was to engage diverse populations in Seattle in a dialogue about climate change, but climate change in the context of counseling, so climate change anxiety, and actually start those conversations through creative interventions, because we all know the facts, we know the stats, we know the science behind the climate change, but actually we don't often talk about the feelings, people's emotions about climate change. So we've designed a series of different activities that we involved the participants in. We had 7 participants. Different ages, different demographics. One of the first activities that we've opened, it was called Ecological Identity Map, and it was hosted by a Portland-based climate psychologist, Thomas Doherty. And during those workshops, I'll just zoom through those slides so maybe you'll get an idea. Participants were encouraged to draw what's called an ecological identity map, so really to kind of figure out their emotional relationship to landscape and the natural world. And you can see that some of the participants, the map helped them rethink their relation to not just the landscape, but also their personal identity. A lot of questions around family histories, intergenerational traumas came out during those sessions. It triggered a lot of interesting questions about what does climate change really bring up for all of us. So these are just some of the examples of participants presenting their identity maps. And another activity we engaged with was a social dreaming matrix. I'm happy to say a little bit more about it in maybe Q&A. It's an activity that we basically gather in a group of people and we share our nighttime dreams and associations. And that was hosted by Rana San, who is one of the co-directors of Cadence. And this was probably one of the most exciting parts of our project, because it's through sharing dreams that various associations about climate change, anxieties really came to the forefront. And we had 3 matrices, and the latter 2 really draw upon the first one, the associations from the first one. So you can see here one of the participants said, for example, that it was during the social dreaming matrix that they experienced more emotions that arose subconsciously about climate change. So one of the common themes in the first matrix was there was a lot of fish in the matrix. A lot of people were sharing dreams about octopuses, fish, sea creatures, a lot of dreams about snow, and a lot of dreams about critters and spiders. And the other 2 matrices were a little bit different, but these were just the common themes that would come up. Then we had a poetry workshop in line with Cadence Video Poetry, which is a festival that champions video poems. And the workshop was hosted by Rana San, co-hosted by Rana San, Chelsea Werner-Jatsky, who are co-directors of Cadence, but also Sasha Lapointe, who joined us on Zoom. And she did a fantastic, I think, a 5-hour-long Zoom workshop on poetry where the participants were asked to respond to certain prompts that she prepared. We also watched some of her videos. We ran through some of excerpts from her Red Paint, her amazing autobiography. And then we had 2 filmmaking workshops. So the first filmmaking workshop was delivered by Dr. Alex Johnston, who is my mentor for this project. Alex talked a little bit about his latest project as well as his practice. And what we really were trying to explore in those workshops were what ethical questions come up when you involve a group of participants in sharing their stories. So we were trying to really kind of unpack the idea, what happens when you point a camera at somebody? Is it a performance? Is it the truth we're looking for? What is it? In the context of climate change and talking about difficult emotions about climate change. So here you've got participants engaging in the workshops. My workshop was a little bit different to Alex, as I showed a lot of different examples of kind of global filmmakers dealing with climate change. So those were 2 days of that. So after these 3 activities, the participants were given a prompt, and their job was really to go out there. They had 3 weeks, and they were supposed to make their own film and implement all the findings from the social dreaming workshop, from the filmmaking workshops, and the poetry workshops. And this has culminated in a final outcome. Oh, sorry, that's unreadable. We had a showcase at Cadence Video Poetry, which I think was in early May, and we showed 7 films by the participants. Bless you. And they were all very, very different. As you can see here, these are just some of the blurbs. So our showcase was followed by a Q&A and a discussion. So that's the first outcome of the project. Second outcome was a podcast that involved Julian Manley, who is a social dreaming host based in Edinburgh, and myself talking to Thomas Doherty, who is this climate change psychologist, about the project and where we're taking it further. So the podcast is available on Climate Change and Happiness website. But I just want to end, before I play the film, with just let you read very briefly through some of the participants' testimonies about the project. We ran a survey after and asked them a series of questions about what emotions about climate change they had after the project and what they've experienced as effect of the project. Maybe I'll just show you one more, but I think what was interesting for us, all of us were creative people who were involved in carrying out the workshops, is that the second comment about, we had a couple of artists as participants, and we openly talked about this idea, what does it mean to make climate change oriented work? And they did say specifically that they didn't want to make art about climate change because it's a work of, largely they consider the work of journalists, but actually through much more poetic approaches, which is what we try to instill with our workshops, they were able to kind of tap into some of the other abilities to actually make creative work about climate change. So so this project, final outcome, we're looking at 2026. It's a feature film that's a collaboration between myself and all the participants. There will be more participants because we're hoping to run similar workshops in Detroit, London, and Coventry over the next year. I'm currently working with 2 producers based in LA to try and figure out funding applications for larger funds for the film. So I'm really grateful for this fellowship because it really kicked off our starting activities, and it helped us to see where the holes are in the project and where the holes were in our conceptual thinking. So that was really, really useful. So I'd like to end with a film that's made by one of the participants, Kate Clark, and it's called Bloom. And you will see in the film there is quite a lot of images of a hand, and a hand was one of the symbols that kept coming up in one of our social dreaming matrices. There were a lot of dreams about hands, so she implemented that in her film as well. So the film is about 4.5 minutes, I think. Okay. Thank you.